The following podcast is a presentation of This Is Infamous. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Intelligent Wrestling Conversation, episode number 1, to be perfectly precise. I am your host, Billy Donnelly, who you can find at joeblow.com, and this is Infamous. So I want to welcome you on our maiden voyage here, as we change things up a little bit, head in a slightly different direction. For those of you who managed to make it through 37 episodes of Just the Worst Wrestling podcast previously, I thank you very much for your support. I appreciate you listening all the way through, or any part of the way through, episodes here and there, whatever it is, however it is that you got through it. I thank you very much for getting through that period with us. But we wanted to do something a little bit differently. And I'll explain to you right now, before we get this show on the road, exactly where this sort of change of course is coming from. When we initially started this whole entire thing, the idea was to sort of create a network of podcasts under the umbrella of Just the Worst Podcast, which we thought was a pretty funny and self-deprecating name, considering everybody talks about how awesome their podcasts are. But over time, what we found was that all the focus needed to sort of go into a couple of podcasts that were really at completely different ends of the spectrum. And because basically putting on a podcast every single day and then trying to do other things as well was just an incredibly daunting task. And in order to put on quality shows and not ones that were suffering just, to do them for the sake of doing them, we downscaled some. And as a result, over time, Just the Worst Podcast didn't really seem to fit anymore. So while we had Just the Worst Movie Review Podcast and Just the Worst Wrestling Podcast, they just didn't seem to fit anymore in the vision for what we wanted to do moving forward. So from this point forward, we're basically scrapping Just the Worst Podcast. Now, we may bring that back as an individual show at some point for some pop culture discussion here and there. But for now, we're going to put it on the shelf and temporarily / maybe permanently retire it and move things in a different direction for the individual shows. Sort of individually brand them and let them be their own thing rather than have them be just the worst of whatever it is that we're doing with them. So our movie review podcast will be launching under a brand new name as well, so keep an eye out for that if you've been following that show regularly also. But for this one, after brainstorming feverishly for a new name and something that I thought made sense for the conversations that we have on this particular show, I thought Intelligent Wrestling Conversation was a perfect fit. Now, for those of you who are hip to the wrestling speak, it won't be too long before you understand where sort of my version of the IWC comes in. I am anti-internet wrestling community. I am anti-wrestling fanboy. I am anti the mass hysteria that permeates throughout wrestling fandom time and time again. And so I wanted to retake the letters of IWC and put some true meaning behind them and apply them here to what I would like to call Intelligent Wrestling Conversation. So here, what you can expect on the show is sort of an extension of what we had been doing previously on Just the Worst Wrestling Podcast, which is really break down and analyze what's going on in the industry, whether it's WWE, TNA, Lucha Underground, New Japan, and put it into perspective. why certain things are working, why other things aren't working, why certain things matter, why other things don't matter. We're not a show that's going to go around rumor mongering or fan booking, I guess, to an extent. Even though for fun we might do that every once in a while. But the main focus here is on the storytelling. Why certain stories are good, why certain stories are not good, why certain characters resonate, why others don't, and sort of the creative decisions that go in and the aftermath of them, the repercussions to doing business a certain way. That is what the Intelligent Wrestling Conversation is all about. That is what this show will continue to move forward into the future with. And for the present, today, for this initial show, we'll kick things off and sort of let you know what I mean. Now, in the past, what we had mostly done when the show airs or is put out for download or streaming to you is a lot of times we wind up leading with the WWE because, look, that company is the show. I mean, that is the big show in the industry. That is where everybody wants to get to. That is the top dog. That is the upper echelon. That is the A game. That's where ultimately everyone wants to wind up, at least in some point. When you get into the world of professional wrestling / sports entertainment, your goal at some point is to be the WWE champion. That's where the goal is. So typically, we wind up kicking off the show and talking about what happened on Monday Night Raw, latest developments within the WWE, where things are heading towards with, the next pay-per-view / special event. This week, that's not actually going to happen. I will talk at length about some things that happened this week with Monday Night Raw, and they're not for the better. But I thought it would be interesting to kick off this particular show talking about one of the debates that's been going on over the Memorial Day weekend, centering around a match that took place within New Japan Pro Wrestling. On May 27th, at the Best of the Super Juniors, there was a one-on-one contest between Ricochet and Will Ospreay. Two indie darlings of sorts, who have really begun making a name for themselves because of the incredible things that they are able to do inside the squared circle. Now, I will admit to have not been watching a great deal of their matches. And I'll explain why in just a little bit. I have seen enough to know who they are. I have seen enough to be familiar with who they are. But I am not a regular viewer. And their match at Best of the Super Juniors prompted some discussion about the art, quote unquote, of professional wrestling. And that discussion was launched by the legend known as Vader, or at one time Big Van Vader. And Vader tweeted about this particular match, saying, quote, "Blatant acrobatics, no story. Is there anything done in this video that relates to winning? You could get two high school gymnasts and put on a show." And that was his quote. Now, Ricochet at one point had a pretty lengthy response to it, and I don't want to necessarily get into him trying to defend himself, because obviously he's going to go out and defend his craft, his approach to wrestling. But there was a lot of discussion about the validity of Vader's comments and sort of the reception of Ricochet versus Ospreay match that took place at Best of the Super Juniors in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I have gone out of my way to make it a point to watch that match so that I could talk about it, particularly to start off this show. The match itself, with introduction and with ring intros and victory hand raising, comes in at about 22 minutes. You can find it online. New Japan Pro Wrestling has actually put it out there for free for a limited time for you to watch on YouTube. So if you want to watch the entire match, you can go ahead and locate it without much of a problem if you look for it on YouTube. So that's not an issue. But I wanted to talk about Vader's comments and sort of my perspective on where the match falls in the spectrum of professional wrestling. Now, let me circle back to where we started this discussion, and that has to do with my familiarity with both Ricochet and Will Ospreay as in-ring competitors. I am not necessarily a fan of both of these guys in the ring. Now, not a fan is probably the wrong choice of words. Their style of wrestling is not my cup of tea. I think that there are some cool things, some pretty amazing things that they are able to do in the ring. But where my stance comes in is not necessarily in line with Vader, but with where I see some of the flaws in where professional wrestling is right now as an industry in capturing the imagination of its audience. That's where I sort of look at this match, look at their styles as not necessarily my cup of tea. Now, I'm not going to say that this is blatant acrobatics. I mean, these are two spectacular athletes who are able to physically do things that many of their peers are incapable of doing. And for that, they should be commended for that. They bring something new to the table, something different to the table, something unique to the table. And one of the things that I've always preached in regards to pro wrestling, especially when dealing with wrestling fanboys on a regular basis, is that not everything is for you. Not everything on the card is for you. Not everything that you watch on a nightly basis, anytime you tune in to watch professional wrestling, has to be for you. The show isn't created and booked for you from top to bottom. The way I've always talked about professional wrestling is that I've likened it to the circus. The circus has something for everyone. And just because something in the circus is not for you doesn't mean the whole circus sucks. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You just say, well, that's not for me. I'll find something else that is. So maybe you don't like clowns. Maybe you have a petrifying, crippling fear of clowns. Maybe you just don't find them funny. But maybe you have just a terrorizing experience with clowns. You are horrified at clowns. You don't then just say, well, screw the circus because I don't like the clowns. No, you just go, well, I'll go get some popcorn or a drink, or maybe I'll go to the bathroom when the clowns come out. And when the trapeze artists come out, oh, I kind of dig them. I'll watch what they can do. And then maybe they bring out some animals. Maybe they do some lion taming. Maybe there's some elephants. Maybe that's not your bag. But the guy getting shot out of the cannon, that is. Wrestling operates in a similar fashion. Just because you don't like the acrobatic performers the high flyers, doesn't mean that they don't deserve a spot on the card, because they may do it for somebody else. One man's trash is another's treasure. Or one woman. I don't want to be sexist. Let's make sure we cover everybody. One person's trash is another's treasure. Okay, what I like, somebody else might not. And what somebody else might not, I may like. So I can't begrudge anyone who likes Ricochet and Will Ospreay, or who enjoys watching them work together. I just know that for me, it doesn't do it. And maybe for Vader, it doesn't do it. I wouldn't go out and say, this is a travesty. Not to put words in his mouth, but to paraphrase, I guess. I would never say that. I wouldn't say these guys are horrible. I just say, I don't really enjoy this type of wrestling. Now, I'm sure there are people out there who have seen this match and they go, but Billy, how can you say that? That match was amazing. 5 stars. Match of the year candidate, which is, what you get all the time. So at least let me lay out why, not necessarily my cup of tea, and why this match in particular didn't necessarily do it for me. And I watched it, but I really felt emotionless watching it. And I think that's, part of the trouble that I have with this particular style is that there's no emotion called into it. Is it cool to watch? Sure. So is a Transformers movie. That doesn't mean I get anything really substantive out of it. It's eye candy, dazzling to my eyes. I can look at it and recognize, hey, that looks pretty cool. And I can recognize that these two guys do some pretty cool maneuvers. Some pretty amazing things that periodically I just watch it on and say, wow, it's pretty spectacular. But in terms of building a match and sucking me into the emotion of whatever story it is that you're telling, I find this particular style lacking. I find that there's an incredible amount of focus on the cool high spot, on doing something that looks amazing or sort of groundbreaking. But there's a lack of psychology that goes into the match. And you look at this particular match at Best of the Super Juniors, and it's right there on display. Which is why I watched it and I just sort of looked at it. There was nothing drawing me into the overall context of the match. There was nothing that had me picking a side. There was nothing that had me either rooting for Ricochet or Will Ospreay. That element was missing, and I think that that's a really key element. Oh, sure, you have people who chant holy shit or this is awesome, and periodically at spots that, they can't do. But that's also why, at times, during these matches, they hit lulls. The crowd is just sitting there. Because what they're doing is they've been sort of conditioned to only expect and appreciate the high spot, so that when there's something else going on, it's irrelevant, it's meaningless. When you are constantly escalating the match, it's hard to continue to top yourself. When you start at 0 and you slowly build, and by the climax you've hit 100, you've taken your audience on a ride. We started like 88. There's a very little bit of room to get to 100 there. So there is no escalation. There's only slow increments. But it feels very flat because you're already so close to the top. It's not a steady incline. It's a very minor incline. So it feels almost as the match is moving laterally rather than building. In addition, I just think the lost art of selling is missing. You know, you have a match like this that is booked pretty much 50-50, and everyone's countering everything, or everybody is coming back with something, even when they're hit with the best shot. And it's not one of those last-ditch effort type of moments. It's the standard for the match. And as a result, the lack of selling that goes on then completely undermines one's offense. Because I can see kicks and enziguris and sentons just thrown out there by both sides, by Ricochet and Will Ospreay. But if the other guy is constantly coming back from it, what does it say about the meaningfulness of that offense? What does it say about those kicks, about those moves, about those suplexes, about those holds, when even after they're delivered, the other guy is able to come right back and hit them with something just as good? So the performers are doing themselves a disservice, all for trying to chase the acceptance of the fan. I get it. Front chin locks, rear chin locks, headlocks, they're not sexy. They're not exciting. Working a body part, not sexy. Not exciting. It doesn't thrill you to watch a hammer lock. But those are necessary parts of building the match. Once again, you can't start way up here. You got to start at the bottom and work your way up. Because that's how you make both your competitors and their move sets matter, count for something. You know, you watch a match like this, and even when there's a false finish, it feels hollow. It feels empty. Because it's lacking any sort of drama, because nothing has happened throughout the match to lead you to believe that anyone is in jeopardy, because no one has taken any sort of punishment. Everyone has taken what was dished out and dished something right back of equal value. So when somebody actually does hit a bigger move later in the match, your suspension of disbelief doesn't lead you to believe this could be it. Perhaps the 3 count may come in. It leads you to believe that there will be a kick out and more cool stuff. You know, the matches like this are fine if you're putting in the effort to make it mean something throughout the match. You can't just hope that everybody's going to jump right in because it's cool looking. Because what winds up happening is you see the cool thing. It may excite you or throw you in the moment, but the second you get your ass out of the seat and you walk out that door and you start heading home, the match escapes you. As soon as you walk out the door, the match escapes you. You may remember one visual here, one visual there, but it doesn't really resonate with you. Because once again, it goes back to storytelling. It's the same thing as if you watch a movie or a TV show. You can watch the most big budget blockbuster summer gargantuan humongous movie that hits in the next few months, and if all that thing has going for it is special effects, visual effects, blowing shit up, destroying the world, it'll hold your interest for the 2 hours you're sitting in the theater. But once you leave, it doesn't mean anything to you. It was just, oh, I saw this cool thing. And look, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that every once in a while, but... And there are people who live by that. There are people who love those experiences. And that's why Ricochet versus Will Ospreay on the card, good for them. Good for them. I'm glad we found something that they enjoy. I'm glad that there was something on the card that speaks to them. I'm just saying, for me, those are the issues that I have with these sorts of matches and these sorts of performances. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be something different throughout the card. There should. Different styles, different personalities, different approaches. Stack them up throughout the card. Always give me something different. So I have a variety of tastes. I have a bunch of things I can look at and say, I like this, I don't like it. It's like a buffet of choices. A buffet of wrestling choices. I'm perfectly fine with that. I think Vader is a little crotchety with his approach. So look, I laid out the reasons why Ricochet versus Will Ospreay at New Japan Best of the Super Juniors did not float my boat. You may feel differently, and guess what? That's okay. That's perfectly fine. I don't have a problem with you thinking differently. I don't have a problem with you forming your own opinion or having your own taste. I think that's great. If you found an appreciation from Ricochet versus Ospreay in New Japan Pro Wrestling that I didn't, good for you. That's awesome. It sucks for me that I didn't dig it as much as you did. But hey, that's life. I'm sure there is something else on a New Japan card that I would like that maybe you wouldn't. And you know what? There might be things that we both don't like or things that we both do. That's the way civil discourse works. It's not, this isn't something I like, so fuck it. That's not how it works. It's not how intelligent wrestling conversation works. It's okay to have a difference of opinion. Just make sure you have your reasons for it. Back it up. Hell, if you like this match, by all means, tell me why. I'm game to hear it. I'll listen to you make your case. Want, send me an email. The IWC show at gmail.com. Send an email there. You could even tweet at me at InfamousKid on Twitter. Hit me up on email or Twitter. Either way. And it's not you telling me that I'm wrong. That's not how this works. You want to tell me what it is that you found in this match that really spoke to you, really resonated with you, really connected with you? Go ahead. I would love to hear it. Because maybe there's something in what you have to say that I can say, oh, well, you know what? I didn't really consider it that way. I didn't think about it that way. And now, maybe I view it differently. Maybe I have a different appreciation for that match now. Or for those two performers. Once again, I'm not saying that they don't belong on the card. I'm just saying they're not my cup of tea. So, if you want to say something differently on the matter, be my guest. The IWC show at gmail.com. Or hit me up on Twitter at InfamousKid, KIDD. And let me know. This is how discussions work. This is how conversations work. Intelligent ones when it comes to wrestling. All right, let me. I think I talked about this match enough. I think I made my case, or at least laid out what I found to be sort of problematic with the show that match, that it didn't really do anything for me. And let me talk about what happened in WWE on Monday Night Raw. It was awful. Okay, it was awful. I'm not even going to try and talk around it. I'm not going to prologue it at all. I'm not going to try and make it sound poetic. Monday Night Raw this week was awful. Truly atrocious. And any goodwill, any excitement, any enthusiasm or optimism that the WWE had created last week with people talking about SmackDown going live, talking about a distinct roster, talking about a brand split / brand extension, any of that goodwill was pissed away on Monday night with a horrible show. A show that to me said, hey, WWE Universe, hey, you individual wrestling fan, don't get your hopes up about anything that we may have on the horizon, because time and time again, what we're going to prove to you is that we are so game to let you down and disappoint you. Now, Monday night, the WWE really needed to bring their A game. Okay, a lot of factors going in to why they needed to hit a home run. Now, look, they should be hitting a home run every week. They have a creative staff of like 49,000 people, and they have a weekly 3-hour primetime TV spot on a prominent cable network. They should be putting out maximum effort every single week. And now, with SmackDown going live, and not sort of just being the redheaded stepchild that could hide behind being taped, they now need to put out 5 hours of quality television every week. Not to mention the fact that you still have NXT on Wednesday, which, you know, there's a lot of speculation about what's going to come of that show. But you need to always be closing. Always be making me as a viewer want to watch your program. And once again, that doesn't mean that everything on the show has to be for me, but it should be compelling enough that even when something comes up that is not my cup of tea, I am willing to wade through it to get to the light on the other side. That's the key. Get me to the other side. Give me something else to look forward to. And on Monday night, what the WWE constantly put out throughout their 3-hour show was stuff that wasn't doing anything for me. And what they would then dangle in front of me, the carrot at the end of the stick, was more shit. Now look, Monday was Memorial Day, so you have people on holiday, they're in the pool, they're barbecuing, they're out having a good time. You gotta try and pull people away from that to come in and watch your show. NBC had Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals on in prime time. So now you have another major sports event trying to lure eyes to it that you're competing against. And while I understand hockey is hockey and it's not for everybody, the Stanley Cup Finals will bring in people who otherwise may not watch, because this is the end of it. And as we all know, the greatest sporting event in all of the land is Stanley Cup playoff hockey. So you have that on one end. On the other end, you have Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals in the NBA with the Warriors and the Thunder in what has been a pretty thrilling series. You have to pull people away from that. You have three things working against you. And your strategy can't be, well, we'll just wave the white flag and put whatever we want on the show. Your strategy has to be, we need to be better than those other options. We need to create something that people say, fuck my friends at this barbecue. I gotta go inside from this luxurious summer weather and watch wrestling on my television. Or, who needs to watch hockey or basketball? I'll catch those results later. I gotta see what happens because John Cena is supposed to return. Or, they're still building towards Money in the Bank. Let me find what compelling reason they're going to give me to keep following the 6 named competitors they have in that match. But that's not what they did. They mailed in an episode. Even knowing that I had this podcast to do, to talk about what happened on Monday Night Raw, I could not take it anymore. And I made note that specifically at 9:18 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I turned Raw off to go watch basketball and hockey. Now, periodically, I would flip over when one or both of those games were in commercial or intermission to see if there was a reason for me to come back to Raw full time. And after the fact, I went back and watched what I missed. But at 9:18 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday Night Raw, on Monday night, I had had enough of Monday Night Raw, and I tuned out. I turned it off. I could not take it anymore. I could not, in good conscience, put myself through any further suffering after what I found to be a horrendous, horrific, atrocious first hour of what the WWE calls programming. The content they put on Memorial Day was an embarrassment. They should be embarrassed by what they put forth on Monday night. Let me run through the first hour with you. Okay? I'll get into John Cena's return in a little bit because I did make sure I caught that. I didn't manage to catch that. I think we're in between periods and quarters between the two games. But the Raw opens with Stephanie and Shane coming to the ring and once again jockeying for the fans' approval of letting them know where they are, as if Monday Night Raw is not in their tickets or they somehow became confused about where they were. Stephanie and Shane don't need to come out into the ring to start the show to welcome the crowd to Monday Night Raw. They know where they are. And all it does is wind up being some self-serving, excruciatingly overlong segment that is inefficient with the time it is given. It's just people talking because they like to hear themselves talk. And so you have Shane and Stephanie coming down to the ring before being interrupted by the New Day, who bring up the brand extension in the most unexciting, unepic way. For anyone who may not have known about the SmackDown announcement, about the brand extension announcement, the New Day come out and in the clunkiest fashion possible announce the brand split, which gets no one giving a shit who's there in attendance. And so we're told, there's going to be a roster on SmackDown and a roster on Raw. And how do they get people excited about that? By potentially teasing the breakup of the World Tag Team Champions? Of your two-time WWE World Tag Team Champions. By saying it's on the table for them to possibly be split up. One of the most over tag teams right now in the WWE. Actually, one of the most over talents, period, in the WWE right now. And the way you want to get people excited about Raw and SmackDown is with the prospect that they might not be together anymore. How does that get anybody excited? You're trying to hawk Bootios t-shirts and unicorn horn headbands, and you want people to know that they may have just wasted their money on a team that's not going to be around in a few weeks? Way to go, guys. So while you have this awful segment to begin with, it proceedingly only gets worse with the prospect of a dance-off between Stephanie and Shane with the New Day twerking. I don't understand this fascination with dance-offs that the WWE has. Why is that the go-to? A dance-off. Do they not realize that people came to watch wrestling? People doing things in the ring to settle their conflict? This isn't West Side Story. And if it was, that'd be better. So you have just this segment that continues to fall off the cliff. It's like Groundhog Day of falling off the cliff. Something happens, they fall off the cliff, they splatter themselves, and rather than pick themselves up and say, well, let's not do that again, within the next minute or two, they just compound the travesty. What an awful way to kick off your show. And what an awful way to kick off this idea of a brand expansion or a brand split. What a truly awful way. And in those 15 to 20 minutes of nonsense, I lost any optimism or confidence I had the week prior that the WWE might intelligently be able to pull this idea off. I walked away saying, there's no way. There's no way. They can't even announce it in a way that's compelling. How are they going to make me want to watch it when it happens? You couldn't even get the who, what, when, where, and why out of the way in simple yet impactful fashion. How the hell am I supposed to believe that you're going to put on 2 hours of interesting program with its own isolated roster on a weekly basis? And guess what? The hour only got worse. Because as Steph is preparing to drop it low, she's interrupted by the vaudevillains, who are now coming down for a match with the New Day. Now, why is that happening? I don't know. The way we're told is that this is for the vaudevillains to re-earn a shot at the tag team titles. This will put them back into the conversation of the title picture. So on paper, I look at that and I say, a non-title match? How many of these are we going to have? why sacrifice your champions to create a contender again? Why not have two non-champions battle it out for the right to challenge for the title, perhaps at Money in the Bank? That's the way it's traditionally done. Why have a challenger take out the champion? All it does is devalue the championship and those who hold it by having them lose on a regular basis to people who aren't the champion. So, okay, we're going to have this match, and these are the stakes. Never mind the fact that right smack in the middle of the WWE's glorious PG programming, for families, of course, do we get JBL dropping a glory hole joke, which, by the way, wouldn't have been funny if it was on TVMA. Just a horrible joke. Not good at all. Not funny at all. I'm sure somebody in the back got a chuckle out of it, but for the rest of us who had to sit through it, it was groan-inducing. But beyond that, what we wind up with is Anderson and Gallows show up and interfere in the match. They wipe out the New Day on the outside, and the referee rings the bell, calling an end to the contest. Now, you would look at that and say, well, that's a disqualification. The New Day will now win by disqualification because they were assaulted by these outside parties. Except, what then happens makes no sense. So the Vaudevillains take out whoever's in the ring. I believe it's Kofi Kingston, as Gallows and Anderson take care of the rest of the New Day on the outside of the ring. But then the Vaudevillains leave Kofi Kingston in the ring for dead for Anderson and Gallows to beat on some more. Now, if this is their shot to get back into the title picture, why aren't they pissed? Why aren't they angry? Why aren't they furious that this other team has robbed them of their shot? I understand that they're both heels, but heels who stab other heels in the back are still heels. And the Vaudevillains aren't the type that would just forget it, just write it off. Oh, we had one shot at the title. We lost. We had a chance here to possibly have another shot at the title. Oh, it got ruined. Oh, well, we'll just go to the back. It just doesn't make any sense. There's zero logic to anything that happens here. And I get Anderson and Gallows are here to make an impact, to make their mark, to put the New Day on notice. But the Vaudevillains look like a bunch of assholes. I mean, they just walk away. They're on the precipice of challenging for the tag team titles once again. And when their shot is ruined, they just go, ah, well, that sucks. And they go in the back and get some food from catering? Take a shower? What's the deal? There's no repercussions. There's no retribution. There's no vengeance. Just throw up their hands like, ah, well, I guess you guys got this. It makes no sense. And yet somehow, the first hour continued to get worse. We have more tag team action right after that with the Usos versus Breezango. Please. Please. I beg of you. Can you please just fucking stop with Breezango? It's not a name. He just took two names and he made up a new word by smushing them together. And it's horrible. Both of those guys deserve so much better. I get the Tyler Breeze gimmick hasn't worked just yet, but that's also because it happened before this quote-unquote new era where you actually put some effort into building talent. This was a guy you just threw on TV and was like, oh, there you go, WWE Universe, like him or don't. So it's no wonder it's floundered. Poor Fandango. Johnny Curtis deserves so much better than that. To be saddled with this gimmick whose time is long gone. I get it. You tried to capitalize on Dancing with the Stars' popularity, but that happened and is over with. Can we please move on from something else? Let this guy go away for a little while and repackage him as something else? So much talent being wasted between those two guys with this bullshit tag team. A horrible waste. On the bright side of the match, we didn't have a distraction roll-up ending the match for once. I mean, we had a distraction crucifix for the win, but I guess it's progress. And that was it. That was the 8 o'clock hour. That was the whole 8 o'clock hour. Then we get to the 9 o'clock hour, right at the top of the hour. And a Roman Reigns-Seth Rollins confrontation is teased. That's what we're going to get. Roman Reigns is coming down to the ring. He's going to talk about why he's so upset that Seth Rollins came out at the end of Extreme Rules and pedigreed him on his face. Didn't matter that he was there last week on Monday Night Raw and could have said something. No, waited 2 weeks. And once again, Roman Reigns in the ring, too cool for school. Because even with Seth Rollins coming down and then not doing anything, Roman Reigns doesn't take it upon himself to get angry. This guy stole your crowning moment at Extreme Rules by pedigreeing your face into the mat, and you just brush it off like, whatever. I'll get him later. There's no fire. Once again, what are the knocks of Roman Reigns? There's no fire. Just none whatsoever. No fire. Feels inauthentic. If some guy came to your office, let's say you're getting an award, you did something great, or even just you're gonna get a gift certificate, to Chili's for a job well done, or you won a raffle or something, I don't know. And one of your coworkers came in and kicked you in the gut and pedigreed you in the face. Pedigreed your face into the floor and took your gift certificate. You didn't wait 2 weeks to be like, I'm just going to let you know, I'll get you later. One day when I feel like it, when it's convenient for me, maybe I'll get to you. So you have a match where Seth Rollins is supposedly playing mind games by repeatedly threatening to run into the ring and get into a scrap with Roman Reigns, but he doesn't, and as a result, nothing happens. Nothing happens except Roman Reigns once again proclaiming his awful, saddled with catchphrase of him being the guy. You just got pedigreed in the face, dude. Nobody gives a shit about you being the guy. The guy got pedigreed in the face. That's not the guy. And this is how they wanted to lure you into the 9 o'clock hour. So you got an hour of shit followed by more garbage. And yet even still, I was like, maybe it'll get better. Nope. Rusev fought Zack Ryder, where once again Lana's identity crisis continued. Now she can't even consistently do the accent. Now it's like, does she have the accent? Does she not have the accent? Are they just going to move on from the accent and pretend and hope nobody notices? And Rusev wipes out Zack Ryder, and then Titus O'Neil came out, and then I was like, I'm out. That was it for me. I was like, I can't. And going back and watching the show later, I didn't miss anything of any real value. I didn't miss much. It was all the same. 6-man tag to close out the show. With the opposite parties of Money in the Blank on opposite, you can almost write it. It's like it's such a cookie cutter formula for an episode of Raw. You could close your eyes and just be like, what's going to happen next week on Raw? And it's not that difficult because it feels like the same show every single week. Now, the one thing that they did of slight interest was the return of John Cena, which happened, I believe, at the 10 o'clock, the top of the 10 o'clock hour. So, like, right around 10 o'clock, that's when John Cena return happened. I don't know why they didn't kick off the show in order to sort of keep people interested. Instead, they waited for 2 hours while people went and watched hockey and basketball before they decided to put this thing on TV. So John Cena returns. He gives this whole speech about Memorial Day, which is, great because John Cena's, all-American and shit. And talks about how, he's still here and the new era has to go through him. Things we've heard before. And then something cool actually does happen. Something interesting happens. And that's AJ Styles coming to the ring. Now, before AJ Styles even opens his mouth, the crowd in Green Bay, Wisconsin loses their shit. Because the idea of having AJ Styles, who is on the rise, even having lost 2 matches to Roman Reigns, is on the rise, making a name for himself and proving that he belongs in the WWE. The prospect of AJ Styles and John Cena getting ready to duke it out at some point is an exciting prospect. For all the flack that people always want to give John Cena, John Cena can't wrestle, John Cena's no good at this, John Cena's no good at that. Watch John Cena's matches where he brings it, which is quite often. CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, Edge, Kevin Owens. You could list the guys he's gone up against. Even just over the last year when he held the U.S. Open title. The U.S. Open challenge for the U.S. title. Neville, Sami Zayn, Cesaro. Incredible matches. And you can't look at it and go, well, John Cena was... That's not how he's carried. Takes 2 to tango. And seeing what John Cena... Or seeing what AJ Styles just did with Roman Reigns, watching John Cena and AJ Styles square off, exciting prospect. So you have the crowd just lose it, and there's just silence between the two talents as the crowd cheers and chants in a dueling fashion for both of them. And it was one of those sweet spot moments of wrestling. One of those moments where you look at it and go, yes! This is when it's so good. And you wonder to yourself, how come we can't do this more often? Or with any sort of regularity? It's those moments where you just go, yes. The tuning fork gets hit, you go, yes. So you have this very cool moment. Then AJ Styles, welcomes back John Cena as somebody he's respected, and what he's been through to get back to this point. 4 months ahead of schedule from the injury. And then Anderson and Gallows come out to confront them, sort of to build off of their breakup with AJ Styles last week, the breakup of the club. And then in that moment, AJ Styles turns on John Cena, attacks him, and then rejoins the club. Now, look, I'm all in favor of a heel AJ Styles. But if that was going to be the case, if that's what you're going with, the breakup last week doesn't really work, or the moment that you're at right now doesn't really work, because it just happened. It didn't have time to resonate with us in any way, shape, or form. There was no real time to build any drama. Towards the split or the turn. Can it really be a turn if AJ Styles didn't really turn from anywhere? It just happened last week. Doesn't it work any better if you maybe set up Styles and Cena versus Anderson and Gallows and have Styles turn on them then? You know, maybe the Cena chants are getting too great. I mean, there's a million ways you could sort of play this, but to just sort of twist it from, well, they're back together after last week when they decided they weren't, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And for me, it took a little bit away from the moment. Not to mention the fact that John Cena, who just came back from injury, you know, and is the great white baby face of the last decade or so, is being triple teamed by AJ Styles, Anderson, and Gallows, and no one does anything about it. No one comes in and makes a save. No one comes and breaks it up. No one tries to stop it. Even if they were to get wiped out, nobody shows up. Not one guy. Referees show up after AJ Styles has beaten the ever-living shit out of John Cena for a while. Referees show up to tend to John Cena. But no actual wrestlers show up and come out to help John Cena. Now, wouldn't that have been a good time for the New Day to come out and help John Cena maybe run off the club after getting their asses kicked by Anderson and Gallows earlier in the show? Maybe. Wouldn't that be a good time for some new talent or some other babyface who could use the rub to come out and help John Cena? And then you could maybe work off a program there with Anderson and Gallows and whoever else is helping John Cena. But instead, John Cena is laid to waste and no one gives a shit. Nobody cares. They're all hanging out in the back with the vaudevillains and catering, just carefree, just unbothered by everything. Oh, John Cena's getting his ass kicked? Ah, whatever. I got some nice slices of provolone. And these tomatoes. Look at these sliced tomatoes. I mean, here you have a prime opportunity in this new era to catapult somebody else upwards by just coming down and trying to help John. Even if they get their ass kicked, at least they try. Where's Dolph Ziggler? Isn't this like the Dolph Ziggler prime spot? Come out and try to make the save and get your ass kicked? Somebody's got to be back there who could be cannon fodder, who then at least looks good for trying to come in. Where is that babyface? Where is that Ricky Steamboat type of character on the roster who just does the right thing because that's who they are? They're a good dude. It just kind of rubbed me wrong. And I thought it was just sort of the epitome, granted a high point, but the epitome of a nonsensical illogical mess of Raw. You guys can't keep doing this. You just can't. You can't expect people to watch on a weekly basis or pay $9.99 for your network or buy your merch or toys or tickets or whatever when the product you are giving them is garbage. There have been some cool things happening on Monday Night Raw coming out of WrestleMania. A lot of new talent, some devotion towards longer matches, some interesting programs, some guys on the way up. But by and large, this 3 hours was atrocious. And it does not give me confidence in you having 2 more live hours a week. I mean, no one was paying attention to SmackDown before when it was just taped. Now that it's live and there's going to be focus on it, you can't do this. It was embarrassing. You should be embarrassed by the program you put on Memorial Day. And I don't need an apology. I don't need we're sorry. I don't need we fucked up. Just do better. Be better. You have the capacity. You have the capability. We've seen it be done. Go do it. That's what happened Monday night. Unacceptable. You want people to be talking about your product for the right reasons, not the wrong. And in a matter of a few days, you flipped it. Flipped it on yourself. Got people talking about the positives of the WWE and where they may go next in a positive light, and then on Monday you pissed it away and made it negative. Learn from those mistakes. Get better, be better, do better. You owe it to yourselves. We would like it too. All right, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. So, look, you want to send me an email about the Ricochet Will Ospreay match from New Japan Best of the Super Juniors, go ahead and do that. You could tweet at me at InfamousKid on Twitter, or you could send me an email, the IWC show at gmail.com. Be interested to read some of your thoughts on it. So by all means, go ahead and send me an email on that. And look, if that match is your cup of tea, I look forward to seeing why. And once again, nobody's right or wrong. Let's just have a conversation about it. An intelligent wrestling conversation. All right, make sure you follow us on the social media. So at Tiz Infamous, that's the mothership for This Is Infamous. So make sure as we rebuild the site, you want to go ahead and follow us there at Tiz Infamous. And you can follow me at Infamous Kid, Kidd. Once again, there will be a separate Twitter handle for Intelligent Wrestling Conversation, but that one's not up and ready yet. As soon as it is, we'll drop it on the show. So in the meantime, at Tiz Infamous, at Infamous Kid. Follow those two on Twitter. Over on Facebook, facebook.com/TizInfamous and facebook.com/Billy the Kid. Get those 2 pages liked for all the content, comments, notifications, and discussion threads that go up. Make sure you fight through those Facebook algorithms. 2 really cool things, 2 really cool pages over there, so make sure you follow those as well. Podcasts can be found on SoundCloud, so soundcloud.com/TizInfamous. Once again, that's TIS Infamous. So on the web, soundcloud.com/TizInfamous, or you can go ahead and get the SoundCloud app. So set up that subscription for yourself on the web, and then download the SoundCloud app. And with your account, you can go ahead and have every single episode that we put on the go, right on the app. So you want to listen to me talk about Will Ospreay and Ricochet, or how Monday Night Raw sucked this week, you can do it on the toilet, in your bed, in the car, wherever, with the SoundCloud app on your phone, tablet. So go download that right now. It's free, and you can listen to every show that we put out there as part of SoundCloud. This Is Infamous is still being rebuilt. I'll let you know once that drops as well. But in the meantime, you can follow me on the This Is Infamous YouTube channel. So just search for This Is Infamous on YouTube for all the cool content that goes up there. You can find me on a regular basis at joeblow.com. And with that said, I want to thank you for coming along on this debut episode of Intelligent Wrestling Conversation. Thank you for streaming, for downloading, for listening, and coming all the way here through with me. I hope you continue to support the show. I think we're on a good path. So keep it up and spread the word as we come back next week to do episode number 2. In the meantime, this has been Intelligent Wrestling Conversation, episode number 1. I have been your host, Billy Donnelly. You have yourself a pleasant, immediate future. I'm out for now. Peace. Intelligent Wrestling Conversation, episode number 1, has been a presentation of This Is Infamous.